And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste system.
We shall go on to the end. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
Good day, everybody. This is UCY.tv. I am your host, Solvinur, and this is the Solvinur event. And so it's time to do some radio. Today we're going to dive into another Trivium related topic, and we're going to start at a study guide. So this is all still introduction, and I think it's important to do this so that people will not be controlled. Trivium basically helps you to think critically, and so that you will not be mind controlled, so to speak. Good day, everybody in the chat. You can go there by going to ucy.tv, click on shows, Solvinur event, and then you will end up on a page where you can either download the previous ones and join in the chat. So let's dive right into this, right? This starts with something about literacy. It kind of ties to what I said about language last week. That language is the prison in which we can express ourselves. Think of a Newspeak dictionary from 1984. It's part 1. Literacy is a form of slavery until a systematic form of critical thinking is practiced by the reader. You see, so literacy is a form of slavery because you're being mind controlled by the words that are put out there in front of you. It creates a cage in which people's minds are contained. Yeah. We'll be discussing the relevance of this observation for the remainder of this lesson, and if you don't currently have a systematic form of critical thinking, don't be alarmed, as you'll be provided with your own lockpicking set in the form of the Lost Tools of Learning. And from there, you can unlock your own potential at your own pace. If you want to free your mind, you first have to come to understand that the process by which words were used to program and control your mind in the first place. Thereby you will have the ability to rewrite the programming in your own image. That's on an individual level. But what about humanity as a whole? The status quo, or existing state of affairs, amounts to this. human actions are in conflict with human needs for survival. The perfect storm of irrationality that we're all experiencing has three major components which create its devastating effect. 1. Censorship or secrecy, which is the act of occulting information. Yeah, that's one of the most important things, I would say. If you're not given the correct information, how can you even come to the correct conclusion, right? That's like the grammar stage. If you do not have the grammar, there's not even you cannot even speak of using your logic, right? So if you're given the wrong grammar, your logic will also be useless. You can use it, but it leads to the wrong conclusion because the grammar is flawed. You see, that's why it's so important to check your sources. 2. Corruption of education, which conveniently leaves you intellectually self-defenseless. 3. Absence of compassionate communication, which prevents constructive action. Yeah? The last one sounds like rhetoric. Absence of compassionate communication, which prevents constructive action. Remember that rhetoric or wisdom is not only having, or let's say, it's not only being wise, but it's also acting. Ending secrecy and revealing the truth does not automatically give people critical thinking and non-violent communication skills. Providing intellectual self-defense does not automatically prevent censorship, nor does it teach one how to communicate. Learning how to communicate does not end secrecy. No, especially not if you're a sophist. Nor does it provide critical thinking. To free our minds, we must take 3 steps and repeat those steps over and over. So, let's begin. The 3 steps, of course, are the trivium. Let's begin by defining 13 simple concepts so that we can all start on the same page. This is very important, people. It's kind of a, well, I wouldn't say dictionary because that's a bit too much, but definition. Definition of words is very important. We need to make sure that when I say a word, you have the same definition of that word as I do. Otherwise, talking is useless. 1. Axiom of non-aggression is an ethical stance which asserts that aggression is inherently illegitimate. Aggression is defined as the initiation of physical force against persons or property, the threat of such, or fraud upon persons of their, or fraud upon persons or their property. In contrast to pacifism, the non-aggression principle does not preclude violent self-defense. The principle is a deontological or rule-based ethical stance. 2. Education. To bring out, to extract. That is definition of education from, I believe it's Latin. To produce from a state of occultation. So, we're kind of assuming here that there is already there's something in humans, and what we need to do is extract it, bring it out. And this is from Johnson's Dictionary, 1845, from the Latin verb educo, to lead or draw out. 3. Occult, from the Latin occulto, to hide or to keep secret. Excuse me. Let's roll another cigarette. Where's my eek? Here it is. Therefore, education is the process of unocculting reality. That's it's not done usually on schools. They don't teach you anything about reality. The only thing that you're taught in school is how to function within this system that we are oppressed by. 4. Polymath. A polymath is from Greek polymathes. Having learned much is a person whose expertise spans a significant number of different subject areas. Yeah, that can help if you know a lot about different topics, so that you can connect them. A simple example would be politics, religion, and economy. 5. Autonomy. From ancient Greek, autonomos, from auto is self, and nomos is law. One who gives oneself their own law is a concept found in moral, political, bioethical philosophy. Well, bioethical, that's eugenics. So, that's not so good. I don't like eugenics. Eugenic ties to Darwin. Within these contexts, it refers to the capacity of a rational individual to make an informed, uncoerced decision. 6. Government is derived from the Latin word gubernare, a verb meaning to control, combined with mente, a Latin noun meaning mind. Government means to control the mind. Okay, I researched this. As far as I know, this is incorrect. The word government means the act of governing. You can find for yourself a lot of other words that end in ment, that have nothing to do with mind, but just means the act of. So go do your own thinking. 7. Cybernetics. The term cybernetics stems from the Greek kybernetes, steersman, governor, pilot, or rather, the same root as government. Cybernetics is a broad field of study which includes equations to control human behavior through the use of language. See? That's like the cage that you get put into. In other words, if the purpose of government is to control the mind, look, the people in government are themselves mind-controlled. They are too stupid to control your mind. They have other people working on that. Okay, but I'll read it anyway. In other words, if the purpose of government is to control the mind, cybernetics would be the instructional manual of how to control your mind. See, government is able to act as a governing instance because you are mind controlled. They are not the cause of it. This means, this will mean more when we get to Norbert Weiner in a few minutes. 8. Conspiracy. From the Latin verb conspire, to conspire. It is the act of occulting information in order to prey on those who have been denied access to the same set of useful information. See also cabal. 9. Terrorism. Government by force of coercion. That's the correct definition of terrorism. It has nothing to do with one single person. 10. Nescient. A lack of awareness or knowledge as a consequence of never having had the choice or opportunity to be exposed to it. Had they been exposed to awareness or knowledge, it would have been integrated into their thoughts and actions, had they only been given the opportunity. 11. Ignorant. Someone who is aware of a concept or knowledge and yet does not integrate this information, and thus are resistant to learning by their own choice, or choosing not to learn. See also denial. Yeah. There is a difference, by the way, because I heard this word used also, cognitive dissonance. There's a difference between denial and cognitive dissonance. Denial is bad. Cognitive dissonance, in a sense, is good, in the sense that it's a feeling that you get that there is something wrong. That's cognitive dissonance. Somebody tells you something and you're like, huh? What's he talking about? And then you need to inform yourself further and remove the contradiction, because that's what a cognitive dissonance is. There is a contradiction. People using double think are basically in a constant state of cognitive dissonance. So you have to get rid of that. Cognitive dissonance is a sign that there is a contradiction somewhere and you need to figure it out, and then the feeling will go away. Next, 12, liber. The Latin word for book is also the same Latin word used to articulate the idea of freedom, and thus is the root word of liberty, also library. Reading books provide a road to cognitive liberty. 13. Compassionate communication. Observing without judgment, we process our feelings and identify mutual needs whereby we can communicate in order to meet the needs of all parties. If the word government literally means to control the mind, which it does not, wouldn't learning how to control your own mind negate the opportunity for external government? Yeah. If you learn how to control your own mind, it means you will not be led along paths that are not good for you. You see, it is the simple act of asking questions which illustrates the Achilles heel of the control system. You can condition animals, but if humans ask questions, they can learn your way to freedom. Government will continue to exist until it is no longer necessary. Yeah. Until it's no longer necessary. I don't know, guys. It seems to me, but that's just me, I guess, that government is a necessary evil, so to speak. Because if we do not have government, what do we do with criminals? Right? That's one of the, as far as I'm concerned, that's one of the main purposes of government, is to lock up the criminals in jail and keep them there. If you don't do that, then if government doesn't do that, the criminals will rule us, you see, because they are scrupulous, and we are not. We are normal human beings. We don't use criminal actions to get to our goals. Another thing that comes to mind is, for instance, the roads. Who's gonna create an infrastructure if there is no government to do that? There's probably other things that should only be done by government. Right? They shouldn't get into things like food, for instance, right? Because that we can do ourselves. We have farmers for that. No need government for that. But I think there are a few things that we need government for, like jails. The absence of government is anarchy, not autonomy. Absence of someone else controlling your mind does not automatically, let's say, it says here not automatically, so I'll use the word that it says here. Absence of someone else controlling your mind does not auto-magically give you critical thinking. So, it's more logical, reasonable, and rational to learn how to learn anything for ourselves and thereby become autonomous, whereby external mind control or government is no longer necessary. Yeah. Government, and again they're using here to control the mind, is a form of aggression when it is against your consent. When governments occult information, for example with top secrecy, it is a form of aggression, as it denies you the opportunity to make an informed choice. If 16 million documents were made top secret by our government last year, how could we possibly expect to be informed as to what reality actually is? Well, government doesn't decide what reality is, but I get the point. When secret societies occult information, because you see, we decide what reality is. That's why I said last week that we should make the memes. New words, make them accepted by a whole lot of people, like death trails, for instance. When secret societies occult information and use oaths as a method of ensuring the secrets stay secret, they generate a power differential. Yeah. If they prevent others from accessing useful information, does this superclass which runs the world have superpowers? They do. Their superpower is to have access to a systematic method to attain certainty, while at the same time denying you access to the same liberating tools. That's the Trivium, or let's say the 7 liberal arts. The purpose of this lesson is to transfer the superpowers of the non-elected rulers to you, whereby you can inspect, validate, and, if you so choose, install your own superpowers of learning. It's a liberating tool, people, the 7 liberal arts. They don't call it liberal for nothing. It liberates you, it frees your mind, and thereby gives you power, you see. As a consequence, if you so choose, you can likewise empower others with the opportunity to catalyze their own learning potential. It's truly the gift that keeps on giving, until someone decided to keep it a secret and assume power to control the rest of our lives without our consent. Without access to the occulted information and the intellectual toolkit to allow you to take actions with certainty, it is a rigged game ensuring consistency, satisfaction, and order for those who occult the information. Yeah? As a result, without learning to outgrow our current situation, many of us react emotionally and cannot outthink our reactions, devolving our state of responsibility. You should read that as, or hear that rather, as responsibility, to that of fight or flight, powered by adrenaline. Emotions are not a valid method of attaining knowledge, and we tend to panic instead of responding to the unknown with observation, logical thought, and informed action to make it known. This is the essence of how we as human beings are being controlled by other human beings by using words. That is correct. Who is doing this to us? The short answer: polymaths who possess rationality without emotion. Yeah, that sounds rather psychopathic to me, but throughout history, many groups have espoused this obsession to control lives of others. Yeah. And starts, or goes even further back than Plato, you know. If you read Plato's Republic, you will see that he's coming from an elitist standpoint. Let's try this again. Throughout history, many groups have espoused this obsession to control the lives of others, whether it is the Athenists, what the heck is that? Oh, from Athene, or the eugenicists, or the ego worshippers. They all support controlling you vis-à-vis the censorship and manipulation of information, better known as the concept of scientific dictatorship. Yeah. That's what you hear in the bumper as well, right? You hear Huxley speaking about a scientific dictatorship in some kind of caste system. Remember? They took that from the Indians, you know? Not American Indians, but from India. They have had a caste system there for thousands of years. Instigated by the Brahmanas, the intelligent class. Some examples illustrating the idea of the scientific dictatorship would be the following members of the 20th century intelligentsia. 1. Edward Bernays. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Yeah. Was he living in a democratic society at that point, or? No. You hear that a lot of times also, even on alternative media. They say, if we are supposed to live in a democratic society, and these are Americans talking, right? Have you not read the Constitution? You're supposed to be a republic, not a democratic. Those who manipulate the unseen mechanisms of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. Yeah, something to be said about that. I'm not quite sure how this works, because here in the Netherlands, for instance, we have a fascist government, which means that the big companies like Shell, for instance, and other organizations like this is not in my country, or well, we have our own version of that, I suppose. But for instance, the TPP, these are organizations that create treaties, basically tying to free trade, and governments can get involved in that, and they will write the laws so that the companies are more free to do what they want to do. You see, that's fascism. So these companies are not occulted. We know who they are. All right? So we are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested largely by men we have never heard of. So this is Edward Bernays speaking, you see. I'm wondering who he knows that we don't know. When he's suggesting that our ideas are suggested, our tasted forms, our minds molded by men we have never heard of. You see, that's what I would tend to agree with, because if you, whoops, clicking on this PDF is not a good idea. Because if you are really in control of this world, and I'm not talking about one person, but let's say a group of persons, you would also make sure that you're in control of the media. And therefore your name will never appear on TV or the radio or newspaper. You will make sure of that. You see? That's why we've never heard of them. This is a logical result of the way in which our democratic society is organized. Yeah. Let's see, Edward Bernays. Where do you come from anyway, buddy? I thought he was American, but he could be British, of course. Copy. Blah, blah. Edward Bernays. Paste. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. This is a good one. Oh, this is propaganda. 1928. Blah, blah. More information on the guy itself would be nice. 1915, when Bernays took Diaghilev Ballet Rush's American tour in 1915. Propaganda. Yeah, he changed the term propaganda to public relations. He dies at 103, it says here. Let's see. Blah, blah. Edward Bernays. But where was he born? Does it say here where he was born? It looks like he was born in New York. So that's America, right? So how can he speak about democratic? Yeah. It's not so nice. He should be talking about republic. Anyway, let's continue. Where were we? Vast numbers of human beings must cooperate. This is Edward Bernays talking, right? Vast numbers of human beings must cooperate in this manner, he means a democratic way, if they are going to live together as a smoothly functioning society. Yeah. He means if they are going to live together under a controlled system. That's what he means. In almost every act of our daily lives, whether in the sphere of politics or business, in our social conduct or our ethical thinking, we are dominated by the relative small number of persons who understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. Yeah. Interesting documentary to go look at is Century of the Self. It is they who pull the wires which control the public mind. This is by Edward Bernays from the book Propaganda 1928. Walter Lippmann is another interesting character. We have learned to call this propaganda, says Walter Lippmann. A group of men who can prevent independent access to the event can arrange the news to suit their purpose. In order to conduct a propaganda campaign, there must be some barrier between the public and the event. Access to real environment must be limited before anyone can create a pseudo-environment he thinks wise or desirable. Walter Lippmann, Public Opinion, 1922. Here's another one, B.F. Skinner, inventor of operant, what is that? Probably something to do with operation. Inventor of operant conditioning. Give me a child and I'll shape him into anything. Yeah, that's what my father thought too. Yeah. I don't know what it is with me, people, but I was thinking on myself from the moment that I woke up. As a moment that I woke up is like the moment that you notice that you're there. You know, like a child, 3, 4 years old. I don't know, they never managed to control me, not even my dad, who tried very hard. But it all seemed kind of contradictory to me. Didn't make sense to me, so I refused. Yeah. I always asked questions and because I never got the answer, or most of the times I didn't get the answer as a child anyway, I refused to accept things. I refused so much that it kept my mind more or less unindoctrinated. Alright? Bertrand Russell. Education should aim at destroying free will, so that, after pupils have left school, they shall be incapable, throughout the rest of their lives, of thinking or acting otherwise than as their schoolmasters would have wished. Yeah, you see, the schoolmasters themselves are also mind-controlled. Right, so it's not the schoolmaster's wish, it's the wish of the system that we live in. The wish of the people that created this system, which is based on politics, economics, and religion. Religion is one of the first ones that must have taken hold. Control of the priests. Yeah, even in ancient societies like the Minoans. Did I mean the Minoans? I think so. Yeah, I think so. The Minoans, they had a priestess ruling class. In the Minoan society, women had a higher standard than men do. And the priestess was like the president of today, for instance. Yeah. Well, assuming that the president has real power, which he doesn't. No, but that kind of idea. Next is Norbert Wiener, author of Cybernetics, who focuses on equations to control human behavior and illustrates how to corrupt our natural communication and feedback, or learning processes, whereby game theory is used to control the masses. Yes, game theory is also addressed in the documentary I mentioned a couple of minutes ago. Century of the Self. Go look at it, people. It's very important. Century of the Self. As I have already hinted, one of the directions of work which the realm of ideas of the Macy meetings has suggested concerns concerns the importance of the notion and the technique of communication in the social system. Okay, this didn't sound like a normal sentence to me, so I'll try it again. It starts here. As I have already hinted, one of the directions of work which the realm of ideas of the Macy meetings has suggested concerns the importance of the notion and the technique of communication in the social system. Okay, that makes more sense. Now let's see what this is, because we can click this. Macy meetings. Oh, they link us to Wikipedia. This is not a good idea. Macy conferences. Let's get another source, shall we? Paste that here. Macy conferences, attendees, ASC, foundations, history of cybernetics. Let's see what this is. No. Let's try another one. The Macy conferences, maybe this is something we can use. Well, that's an empty page, so can't use that. PDF, cybernetics, the Macy conferences. Unfortunately, these PDFs take ages to load. So while that's loading, let's get back to where we were, shall we? Where were we? Here. It is certainly true that the social system is an organization like the individual, that it is bound together by a system of communication, and that it has a dynamic in which circular processes of a feedback nature play an important part. This is true both in general fields of anthropology and sociology, and in the more specific field of economics. And the very important work which we have already mentioned of von Neumann and Morgenstern, that would be in English Morgenstar, or Morgen, actually that's a Dutch word. Morgenster means star that appears in the morning. Morgen, morning. Yeah, the star that appears in the morning is the sun, people. You see, the sun is a star. And it appears in the morning. Anyway, let's try this again. In the more specific field of economics and the very important work, which we have already mentioned, of von Neumann and Morgenstern, on the theory of games enters into this range of ideas. On this basis, Doctorandus Gregory Bateson and Margaret Mead have urged me, in view of the intensely pressing nature of the sociological and economical problems of the present age and confusion, to devote a large part of my energies to the discussion of this side of cybernetics. If you are unfamiliar with what this quote means, click the link to Macy Conferences on Wikipedia and learn your way forward after this lesson. Yeah, that's why I did that previously already. Cybernetics. Problem loading page. This PDF won't load. What the heck? Come on. Because I clicked away though. The Macy Conference. Let's use Wikipedia for a moment, shall we? The Macy Conference were a set of meetings of scholars from various disciplines held in New York by the initiative of Warren McCullough and Josiah Macy Junior Foundation from 1946 to 1963. Okay, the PDF really won't load. That's annoying. the principal purposes of these series of conferences was to set the foundation for a general science of the workings of the human mind. Yeah, they already know that, people. They knew that thousands of years ago. How do you think the Brahmanas instituted this caste system? It's because they exactly know what kind of people we're dealing with here. They had this figured out long, long ago, people. There are basically three major things that control us when you're talking about humans. And they are ignorance, passion, and goodness, according to the ancient Indians. Ignorance, of course, being one of the main ones, especially in this age. So what they are doing, this Macy conference, is basically rehashing what they already know. It was one of the first studies of interdisciplinarity, spawning breakthroughs in the systems theory cybernetics, and what later became known as cognitive science. The Macy Conference were organized by Josiah Macy Jr. Foundation, motivated by Lawrence K. Frank and Frank Fremont Smith of the Macy Foundation. The participants were leading scientists from a wide range of fields. Casual recollections of several participants stress the communicative difficulties in the beginning, giving way to the gradual establishment of a common language powerful enough to communicate the intricacies of the various fields of expertise present. The scientists participating in all or most of the conferences are known as the core group. And then you get a list of all these people. So, I'm not going to read that list of these people. See, this is not enough information about Macy. You shouldn't have more. This darn PDF won't load. Let's see, Macy Conference. Cybernetic. Let's see what this says. Also not a lot of information. Let's see, maybe this one. No, this is in German. Not so good. You people don't understand German. It's because I'm in the Netherlands, probably, that I get links that, tie more to the Dutch and German possibilities, because change to English. I've done this so many times, it's ridiculous. This darn Google will only paste me these Dutch stupid things when I want English. Let's see, it's German again. Attendees, next. Center served as a unique faculty dedicated to the educational opportunities. Okay, this might be good. Let's see if this is something. Oh my God, go away. Pala. No, this is not good. It's not what I was looking for. Amazon. Let's see what this is. Blah. Looking for scientific social science. The Macy Conferences on Cybernetics in Bateson's itinerary. Purpose. The paper studies the participation of Gregory Bateson at the Macy Conference on Cybernetics. that would prove to be a real turning point in his intellectual itinerary, whatever that is. Design, methodology, approach. It bases itself on more or less known documents and on the newer studies on early cybernetics, focusing in particular on the earliest Macy meetings. Findings. Being still an anthropologist, Bateson insisted on the importance and lack of theory in social sciences. Arriving at the first Macy meeting, he hoped that the new researches conducted by Norbert Wiener with others would have helped him to clarify the concept of circular causality that he believed to be the very central theoretical notion in social sciences. Yeah. I myself wouldn't even call this social sciences. I would call it social indoctrination. You know? Social sciences, if I would take this word as I would interpret it, would have more to do with how people functioned amongst each other 80,000 years ago, or 100,000 years ago. That would be more like a natural social science. How do people interact with each other, you know? Without being indoctrinated in school. Right? Indeed, Wiener was strongly skeptical about the inclusion of social sciences in the new cybernetic programs. Yeah, why? If you are really belonging to this class that is supposed to lead us, you shouldn't be so skeptical about that. You should use it because it's a weapon being used against us, you see? Nevertheless, Bateson could learn all about negative and positive feedback, about how negative feedback was able to explain finality in a non-metaphysical way, and discovered the specificity of phenomena concerning information. In addition, he became acquainted with Russell's theory of logical types, which resonated in his mind with his ideas about deutero learning, whatever that is. Very quickly, his reasoning about circular processes in society began to include also problems of communication and self-referentiality. And then already the article stops. There's so little information on cybernetics. Let's see what this says. Open this up. Blah, blah. No, not usable. Here's another one. Hope this one will load. Okay. Let's see what this is, people. It's a PDF. This is a big one. A note by editors. I'm skipping that. Note by editors. Let's see, where does it start? It's only note by editors? Okay, that's useless. Oh, let's see what it says anyway then, right? If this is the only thing available. A note by editors. To the reader of this somewhat unusual document, a few words of explanation and caution. This is not a book in the usual sense, nor the well-rounded transcript of a symposium. These pages should rather be received as the partial account of conversations within a group whose interchange actually extends beyond the confines of the 2-day meetings reported herein. Herein. This account attempts to capture a fragment of the group's interchange in all its evanescence, because it represents to us one of the few concerted efforts at interdisciplinary communication. The members of this group share the belief that one can and must attempt communication across the boundaries and often chasms which separate the various sciences. The participants have come from many fields. They are physicists, mathematicians, electrical engineers, physiologists, neurologists, experimental psychologists, psychiatrists, sociologists, and cultural anthropologists. That such a gathering failed to produce the Babylonian confusion that might have been expected is probably the most remarkable result of this meeting and of those who preceded it. This ability to remain in touch with each other, to sustain the dialogue across departmental boundaries and, in particular, across the gulf between natural and social sciences, is due to the unifying effect of certain key problems with which all members are concerned. Really. The problem of communication and self-integrating mechanisms. Revolving around these concepts, the discussion was communication about communication, necessarily obscure in places and for more than one reason. Yet the actual outcome was far more intelligible than one might think, so that the editors felt enjoined to reproduce the transcript as faithfully as possible. The social process of which these transactions are an incomplete residue was not a sequence of formal papers read by individual participants and punctuated by prepared discussions. With few exceptions, people spoke freely and without notes. Unavoidably, some speakers produced inaccurate memories of their own facts or of those of others, and trends of thoughts were often left incomplete. Really? Trends of thought were often left incomplete? Aren't these supposed to be the experts on their field, and they can't even complete a line of thought? Bunch of noobs. The printed record preserves the essential nature of this interchange in which partial associations were permitted on the assumption that closure would take place at some other time, producing new ideas or reinforcing those that were thought of in passing. Stimulation for many scientists comes from such partial and sometimes even inaccurate reproductions of material from widely separated fields. Fields which seem dissimilar except for the logical structure of their central problem. If the reader wishes a format statement of the work and point out If the reader wishes a format statement of the work and point of view of individual participants, he will have to consult other sources. This can be done with ease since most of the contributors have provided references to previously published material. The reader should be warned that the presentation and discussion tend to respond to previous meetings of the group. Some statements were designed to answer questions asked months or years before, or designed to evoke some long anticipated answer from a fellow member. This sounds like a think tank to me, people. Radical changes in the manuscript would have been necessary had we attempted to rid the group of its history. Such changes would have been dissertations. No. Such changes would have been distortions and would prevent the reader from noticing the unfinished state of the group's affairs. Our editorial procedure, nevertheless, involved some revision of the transcript prior to publication. Okay, hold on, people. Let's see what maybe this. Hold on, people. Doing research while we make radio. Yeah, let's do this instead. As an introduction to these transactions of the 8th Conference on Cybernetics, I should like to outline what it is that the Foundation hopes to accomplish in its conference program. We are interested, first of all, in furthering knowledge about cybernetics. And to this end, the participants were brought together to exchange ideas, experiences, data, and methods. In addition to this particular goal, however, there is a further and perhaps more fundamental aim which is shared by all our conference groups. The promotion of meaningful communication between scientific disciplines. The problem of communication between disciplines we feel to be a very real and very urgent one. The most effective advancement of the whole of science being to a large extent dependent upon it, because of the acceleration rate at which new knowledge is accumulating and because discoveries in one field so often result from information gained in quite another, channels must be established for the most relevant dissemination of this knowledge. The increasing realization that nature itself recognizes no boundaries makes it evident also that the continued isolation of the several branches of science is a serious obstacle to scientific progress. This is a better PDF to read. Particularly, it is so in medicine that the limited view through the lens of one discipline is no longer enough. For example, today medicine must be very well versed in nuclear physics because of the tracer techniques and the injury which can result from radiation. At the other extreme, medicine is certainly a social science and, through mental health, must be concerned with the economic and social questions. What are they talking about mental health here? They don't want you to be mentally healthy. They want you to be mentally controlled, which is unhealthy. The answer then is not further fragmentation into increasingly isolated specialities, disciplines and departments, but the integration of science and scientific knowledge for the enrichment of all branches. This integration, we feel, can be encouraged by providing opportunities for a multi-professional approach to given topics. Although the fertility of the multidiscipline approach is recognized, adequate provision is not made for it by our universities, scientific societies and journals. And perhaps the presence of other hindering factors must be admitted. partly semantic in nature, they may also, to some degree, be psychological. Admittedly, it is oftentimes difficult to accept data derived from methods with which one is unfamiliar. By making free and informal discussion the central core of our meetings, we hope to achieve an atmosphere which minimizes as much as possible these emotional barriers. Thus, our meetings are in contrast to the usual scientific gatherings. They are not designed to present neat solutions to tidy problems, but to elicit provocative discussions of the difficulties which are being encountered in research and practice. Yeah. Research, right? Why do they not call it search? For this reason, we ask that the presentations be relatively brief and that the emphasis be placed on discussion as the heart of the meeting. Our hope is that the participants will come prepared not to defend a single point of view, but to take advantage of the meetings as an opportunity to speak with representatives of other disciplines in much the same way that they would talk with their own colleagues in their own laboratories. Lab rats. We have now 13 groups functioning under the conference program. The following topics are covered: adrenal cortex, aging, blood clotting, cold injury, connective tissues, consciousness, cybernetics, infancy and childhood, liver injury, metabolic interrelations, nerve impulse, renal function, and shock and circulatory homeostasis. When a new conference is organized, the chairman, in consultation with the foundation, selects 15 scientists to be the nucleus of the group, and every effort is made to include representatives from all pertinent disciplines. Okay, I'm going to stop this here and go back to where we were. Here we go. 6. Aldous Huxley. A really efficient totalitarian state would be one in which the all-powerful executive of political bosses and their army of managers control a population of slaves who do not have to be coerced because they love their servitude. To make them love it is the task assigned in present-day totalitarian states to ministries of propaganda, newspaper editors, and school teachers. Yeah, they're already at this point, people. I was like, I was laughing, which is really not quite a caring reaction, but there was this CNN clip that I saw, and this had to do with a Chinese woman. And this Chinese woman had a job at a factory, right? And she was smiling at everything that she said. Everything. She was happy, you know? She really was. And what she said was, I'm so happy and I have this job and the job is only 50 yards away from where I live. And I work six days a week and I can even see my husband once every other weekend where we meet with our child. You know, she only sees her child every 14 days. And she's happy. You see? They've already accomplished this. that they love their servitude. The greatest triumphs of propaganda have been accomplished not by doing something, but by refraining from doing. Great is truth, but still greater from a practical point of view is silence about the truth. This is by Aldous Huxley, The Ultimate Revolution, March 20, 1962 at Berkeley. Yeah. Traitor. Part 2, The Secret of Secret Societies. There are many artifacts which illustrate that the craft of masonry is much older than its public eruption in Great Britain in the 1700s. Yeah, that is, I would tend to have to agree with that. There's many other people that have studied masonry and came to the conclusion that it's much older. One such document is the Wood manuscript, around 1610, which contains 32 pages, and therein begins by proclaiming that masonry has always been associated with grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. Huh. That's the wrong order, by the way. It's grammar, logic, rhetoric, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. Huh? Grammar are your building blocks. Logic is piecing these building blocks together. Rhetoric is using and being able to speak about what you've just done. The grammar and logic steps. Then arithmetic, which pertains to number. Geometry, which pertains to number and space. Music is number and time. And astronomy is number in time and space. This is an unmistakable reference to the 7 liberal arts, composed of the Trivium and the Quadrivium. These are ancient subjects lost to the Christian world during the Dark Ages and preserved in the Middle East by Arab scholars until the Crusades. Another curious artifact is found as the conclusion to Albert Pike's magnum opus, Morals and Dogma, where on page 861 he proclaims that the royal secret of the sublime prince is found in the understanding of the Pythagorean 5-3-4 right angle triangle. The 5 representing the 5 senses, the 3 representing the trivium, and the 4 representing the quadrivium. It is in observing with our 5 senses that we process this input using the trivium and quantify our reality using number in its many forms via the quadrivium. As a measure of understanding, Morals and Dogma also brings to mind the Masonic credo, Ordo ab Chaos, or order out of chaos. Yeah. Something springs to mind here, which I should share, actually. They say that these ancients, they must have been stupid, right? Because, you know, we were using stone tools and coming from the Stone Age and stuff. There are, however, a couple of myths, and I will share one with you, that show that they really knew much more. They did. So there was this one, well, let's call it person, and I don't even remember the name of this dude, but it doesn't really matter. The myth is that this person, he wanted to get the attention of the gods. And this person also had some abilities. He had the ability to make himself very, very heavy. And what he did was he went to the North Pole and stood there on his toe, right? And went and became very heavy. You know what happens when you put a lot of pressure on one single point. That's why the toe is mentioned, that he's standing on his toe. You create a momentum, right? And so he was standing there for decades, trying to get the attention of the gods. And they wouldn't show, you know. He wouldn't get the attention. And so he got heavier and heavier and heavier. And that's how the earth tilted, you see. So they knew about that a long, long time ago. They also knew more about the earth. But let's just continue here. Morals and dogma also brings to mind the Masonic credo, ordo ab chaos, or order out of chaos, allegedly a metaphor illuminating as to the source of Masonic power, in their ability to create chaos out of which they can maintain control and assert order. Indeed, this is accurate, and learning is the process of establishing order over chaos, or the method of transmuting chaos into order. Using the 3 steps of the Trivium, which we'll get to in the next section of this lesson. The method of transmuting order out of chaos is only evil if it is held by one side and used against another, as this is the consequence of the occulting of useful tools of learning. By reintroducing these concepts to those who are not in secret societies and thus under no oaths of secrecy, we can effectively dissolve the power which the non-elected rulers use to assert their control over the masses, one mind at a time, without violating anyone's free will. Yeah, this is also why I say we have the power. You see? It says here, we can effectively dissolve the power which the non-elected rulers, right? They are not as powerful as we are, you see. They only rule us because we give the power away. You know? We should take the power back, because we are many. We are way more than them. We have the power, not them. What's more, the esoteric message of the symbols and words used by the perfectibilists, better known as the Illuminati, render even more interesting discoveries of learning. The owl represents a predator who can see in the dark, while you cannot. Yeah. Referring to the fact that those in society can see the occult information, while you cannot. Yeah. The triangle represents the Trinity, or 3-step process of systematic learning. And the quote, that's some language, I don't know. Per me, or per me, cae se vident, something like that, which translates to, through me the blind become sighted. Likewise refers to the process of learning. Yeah, reminds me of a quote by Jesus, right? You have ears but you don't hear, you have eyes but you don't see. A process which is not shared equally can be used as a weapon, given great power to the few and used to control the many. Yeah. If the word light is derived from lux, might the process of shedding light be equated to the unocculting of information, which is also learning or education? Might that which allows us to observe, excuse me, compare reality to our memory and learn as a result, be something that people of the past have worshipped? Might someone at some time in the past have sought to cloak the power of learning by making others, without access to the tools of learning, to think that it is evil or even an adversary, so as to use fear to prevent others from making meaningful discoveries and sharing knowledge with others? Yeah, this reminds me, of course, of the devil or Lucifer, right? Adversary, Satan, adversary, right? Evil, Lucifer, Satan, remember? You hear a lot of talk about, well, maybe you don't, but there is a lot of talk about that Lucifer is being presented as a force of evil, while in fact, according to the Masons, he is a force of good. Because he is like Prometheus, who gave fire, which stands for the sun, which stands for knowledge. The light is knowledge, you see, as opposed to the dark, you see. Who gave fire to humanity. It's the same as the snake in the garden, the tree of knowledge, remember? As far as I know, my conclusion to this, and you don't have to accept this, but this has to do with a stepping out of the animal world into a human world. This is a transformation of a ape-man-like state of being to a human-like state of being. Animals don't have this, what we have. We have the ability to distinguish between good and evil. Yeah? And also we are more intelligent than other animals. Although some animals seem to be very intelligent. And I'll give a small example here, but for instance how a spider creates his web, that kind of shows that he's intelligent, right? He knows how to do that. So these myths about the snake and the apple, or Prometheus, suggest to me that they are talking about a time when humans started to appear on the earth. So, as opposed to ape-man-like creatures who do not use intelligence. Right? They don't use as many tools, for instance. Some apes, for instance, will use a stick and put it into a tree to get the ants out, and then they lick the stick because the ants are on the stick, right? So that's a use of tool, but that's very, very small use of tools. Our use of tools is much, much greater. So there's the difference, you see, but it starts by using tools. That's a sign of intelligence, to create tools from the environment, right? Okay, continuing. That might start to account for the reason as to why our most precious natural resources, that of the ability for each individual to develop their mental capacity, has been most evidently been subverted over past centuries. Now that we know that A, there is a method to learning anything, and B, that the method has been occulted and held as primary secret of secret societies, because if they can prevent you from learning likewise, they have a favorable advantage in power or leverage. Yeah, that's correct. Since most of the information we need to understand our history has been occulted, it is through the process of reading books whereby we can liberate our minds and exercise our freedom of speech and communication to better progress our understandings through a common language of interaction with others. This is the process by which we as individuals help each other to free our minds. Books are best resources of knowledge into the history of humanity. Yeah. And it's our ability to find and filter the valuable information and share it with others, which provides hope that all is not lost. All learning that then begins with an observation. Yeah, that's how you get grammar. That's where it starts. General grammar, not special grammar. All learning begins with an observation. That's using your 5 senses. That's how you get your grammar. And if our curiosity is healthy and hasn't been poisoned, our questioning of that observation leads us to learn our way forward by asking substantial questions and finding valid answers. Yeah. That reminds me of what I said like 1 hour ago or so. You know, as a child, I was presented with so much grammar. Yeah. And the questions I had about the relationships between these pieces of grammar were not answered. So I threw them out. You know? I only use grammar which I understand. You know, understanding means you can see the relationships between them. Yeah. Is there a relationship between the quality of our judgment or decisions and the quality of our lives? If you observe that there is a direct relationship between the quality of our judgment and the quality of our lives, then the question becomes, excuse me, what is the method by which we can improve the quality of our judgment and decisions? Maybe I'm not so sure about this. Let's try this again. Is there a relationship between the quality of our judgment and decisions and the quality of our lives? Really? What about these children that are born in Africa and don't get enough food? Would knowing about the Trivium help them? Certainly not. You know? Continuing. If someone wanted to raise their standard of living at your expense, in the example of Bernie Madoff, or any other con man, what might they have to do in order to be in a power position? Simply to undermine your ability to make quality decisions and accurate judgments. That is correct. Okay, in that sense, quality and judgment, quality of our judgment and decisions do have a relationship with the quality of our lives, you see. Simply to undermine your ability to make quality decisions and accurate judgments is done by occulting information, secrets which are protected by oaths and other forms of coercion. It is, if the status quo is fueled by our poor judgment and simultaneously the status quo is in direct conflict with human needs of survival, might improving our ability to make quality decisions and accurate judgment not resolve the conflict ongoing? What is the biggest threat to the ruling classes? Are they genetically superior, or have they just been provided with tools to attain a higher level of perspective, thus making them our intellectual superiors through the occulting of information and corruption of public education? Might the method by which one learns how to learn anything for oneself be the biggest secret? Is the world governed by people who are intellectual inferiors? This question will be addressed throughout this lesson, so let's then ask a question which pertains to why we're all here seeking intellectual self-defense. What creates an opportunity for a con man to take advantage of his prey? It is through the observation that knowledge exists, and the observation that the occulting of information by one side creates an imbalance of power. Yeah? This imbalance provides the opportunity for predators to create their own prey. Yep. To make slaves out of those who are not privy to the occulted or secret information, whether it is the 3-card Monte or shell game on a city street, or it's the Ponzi scheme being used to steal trillions from millions of people. Those in the know who seek power through the occulting of information use this gap in knowledge to act as their fulcrum. The more secrets, the greater their leverage. How do you know you're being fooled? Did you notice that sometimes honest people are providing information which is dishonest? Not as a function of their attempt to deceive you, but rather because they have not validated that which they are attempting to pass on to you as knowledge. Yeah, that happens like all of the time. You know, and sometimes I really get mad at these people. Why did you not check your facts? You know? And I can't even get mad at mainstream media because that's their job. But if you are a member of the so-called alternative media, you should be checking your facts before you start spouting your so-called knowledge. And have good sources for your claims. How can we attain higher degrees of certainty by learning how to discern fact from fiction? We could start by defining what is meant by knowledge. It can be said that we live in a symbolic world, and all knowledge is a function of how communities of knowers construe and manipulate symbols. Yeah. It is important. I think it's important to note that knowledge plays an important role in communication, as does logic, the combination of which equates to rhetoric, which pertains to the expression of knowledge, not only the expression of knowledge, but also the using of it. If this process is uncorrupted and remains in integrity with the law of identity, yeah, that's what I would say is the more important thing about knowledge. It has to have a relationship with identity. You know, because knowledge always, there's no other way, as far as I'm concerned anyway. There's no other option. As a philosopher, I say that knowledge has to do with reality, or truth must be related to that. That's why identity is important. It is through this knowledge, or the ability to construe and manipulate symbols, that rhetoric is formed. What is this? It is through this knowledge, or the ability to construe and manipulate symbols? Really? You know, don't they mean to construe and manipulate the meaning of symbols? That rhetoric is formed, and this is the process by which polymaths govern, right? Because they give you the symbols and give you an exoteric story about what these symbols mean, and you all believe it, right? Instead of checking it for yourself. That's how they control you. And in that realization, one might then recognize the concepts which embody those who govern. All knowledge starts with observation through the 5 senses. This is the genesis of thinking as a process of identification to validate the contents which we store as memory. It has been said that judgment without observation is the epitome of ignorance, while observation without judgment is the epitome of wisdom. But why is observation without judgment so important? It is because, in order to reach a point of decision or judgment, one has to think as a method to get there. Yeah, right. And if you're a judge, if you've already judged, then there's no more thinking, right? And observation is not the end result of judgment. Rather, it is the starting point for thinking to occur. Correct. What is thinking but an ongoing process of achieving identification and the process of inferring these identifications into a body of logically connected knowledge? Again, correct. Thinking is the process of asking the question, who, what, where, when. Who, what, when, where, okay, that's your grammar. Why is the logic, and how is rhetoric, okay? Read this again. Thinking is the process of asking the questions who, what, when, where, why, and how, and finding valid answers, whereby you can make an informed decision or accurate judgment. Okay, that's the trivium. In your process, and notice, by the way, that is a normal way of getting your judgment. That's how normally your mind works, by asking who, what, where, when, and then why and how. But it starts with who, what, when, where. That's your grammar. And that is a normal way on how you should gather your information and make judgments. Then comes the why. Maybe you should leave out the make judgment, because you should do that later. First you gather your information. Doesn't matter if within your gathering you gather misinformation. It doesn't matter. Because you will find that out when you start using your logic, right? So gather as much as possible about the topic. And while gathering, you will also find some contradictions, but don't worry about that, just keep gathering. Then, when you have gathered enough information, then start using your logic and making connections and removing contradictions. That's the why. If your process of observation does not progress through the dialectic, that's your logic, or question and answer process of thinking, your judgment reflects nothing other than conditioned responses, programmed by your environment, and thus you will find it to be unsatisfactory, as the status quo is created to facilitate progress and protect the non-elected ruling class, and you're not in it. Why are we all here tonight? It is because we have all observed contradictions in our perspectives of reality, and therein, these contradictions have sparked our curiosity and initiated us on a process of thinking, whereby we seek to learn how to remove our misunderstandings about the world and communicate these newfound understandings to others. Okay, be careful about what I just said, when I said, like, gather your grammar, keep gathering your grammar, and then remove the contradictions when you try to fit these pieces together. It could be that the grammar is flawed, so you throw that out. But it can also be that you do not have a good grasp of the grammar, which also can create a contradiction. Do not throw it out then, but re-examine the grammar, okay? Make sure you have the correct definitions, right? Next, the root cause of what makes us aware that something is wrong is that we are comparing and contrasting. Yeah, there's another way in which we are aware that something is wrong, and this is cognitive dissonance. It's not the same as denial. Okay? When you have cognitive dissonance, there's something in the back of your head that goes, that raises a red flag, you know? And then you need to examine it and make sure the red flag goes away, so that you are left with the correct grammar or the correct way of looking at something. The root cause of what makes us aware that something is wrong is that we are comparing and contrasting that which we observe now to that which we have experienced in the past. We can all remember a time when we were availed greater degrees of liberty, and in comparing and contrasting the past to the present, we sense a decline in our way of life. Yeah, that's also something I should address, at least here in the Netherlands anyway. Because, you know, I have been in the United States and in Canada, but I don't know what the situation is there like now at this moment. But you know, when they say that things are getting worse and worse, and economic crisis here and economic crisis there, you know, when I go to the market here in the Netherlands during this so-called economic crisis, you can buy anything, even if you are quote-unquote poor. You know? You can buy all kinds of exotic fish and all kinds of vegetables and fruit, and there's everything on this market. What do you mean economic crisis? Seriously. It's really not as bad as people might want to present to you. And at least I'm talking about the Netherlands here, right? They say we have an unemployment rate of about 10%. Now, I don't know where these people get their numbers from, but it's probably higher. You know, these political people, they will claim such and such percentage of unemployment, and I'm suspicious of that, because if they were to give the real numbers, they would look bad, you know, these political so-called leaders, because they don't lead anything. They're only mouthpieces, and what they do is lie. But still, even with all this lying and deceiving going on, the Dutch people, they're not complaining, you know. Why not? Because they have a lot of money to spend. They really do. Most of the Dutch people, and that includes me, who hasn't had a job in years because my hand got hurt, and I can't do the job that I used to do anymore because my hand doesn't work as it's supposed to. It hurts, even now, because my fingers are hurt. I can't use them as I used to. I have enough money. I got more than enough money, you know, and there's nobody here in the Netherlands that has to live on the streets. And even if you do, which is possible, you can choose to, you still get enough money from the government, which taxes all of us a lot, sometimes 60%, especially if you work for the government. You are taxed 60%. But still, then, you keep like 2 or 3 or even 4,000 or more euros per month to spend, which is more than enough. People can buy new cars and new houses and new this and new that. So, I don't know what it is with these so-called ruling class, but they're keeping up an economic here. I don't know how they do it, but it's not as bad as in China, for instance. When you want to believe all these fear-mongering people that things are going to hell, they said this decades ago, you know? And it's only getting better here, as far as I can see. It's not getting worse. On the contrary. You know, oh yes, there is inflation, sure. But the wages also rise. So what happens is that the currency is worth less, but you get more of it. So, you know, people aren't complaining here in the Netherlands. They're not out on the streets protesting the government. The only people that are on the streets protesting the government are the awake people. Not the sheep, which is most of us. Like 95, 96, 97% of us. They don't know and they don't care. They don't even want to know. Because they got it way too good, you know? They're quite happy, so to speak. And I don't know why these so-called ruling elites are keeping it like this. Is it really that they are afraid of us? That if the sheep start stamping around, that we would destroy our own society? I don't know. Okay, let's continue here. This comparison or contrast is the basis of the duality of our shared physical reality. Without contrast, there would be no way to discern one thing from another, which is the essence of unity or non-duality. Here in the physical world, we're all familiar with how corporations identify themselves, with logos. In the ancient Greek, logos, often translated as word or number, originally meant ratio. That's interesting, like rational, right? And another thing I would like to mention in regards with my rant just a minute ago is like, we have so much power, apparently, as a people, that we were able to ban GMO foods. You know? It's about time this is getting banned in other places as well. But we don't allow that GMO food here. It's even gotten so bad that they managed to wiggle themselves in anyway, this GMO farming. Because now, a couple of years ago, we found out that there are genetically modified potatoes fields, 12 of them, here in the Netherlands, as an experiment. And unfortunately, our Freedom of Information Act didn't work. We have that here too. But the government refuses to reveal where these places are, these 12 or 13 fields. Okay, but they're not meant for consumption. So, because we banned that stuff. We made it illegal. So it seems that the Dutch people do have some influence on what's going on in this society. And I don't know, maybe it's the Dutch only. I don't know. They say that of the Dutch in other countries where I've been, they say that we are nuchter, what they call nuchter. You know, it means like you're aware. Nuchter means not drunk, you know? Not having your mind like in these cartoons where you see somebody get smacked over the head and you see all these bells and birds flying around your head. Maybe the Dutch are not like that. But that's what I see with most people. They're stunned. They're clueless. And that's how you get governed. That's how you are controlled. By being clueless. The Pythagoreans developed a theory of ratio and proportion as applied to numbers. Early translators rendered this into Latin as ratio, meaning reason, as in rational. Medieval writers used the word proportio, proportion, to indicate ratio and proportionality, for the equality of ratios. Yeah, there's a lot of, I'm not so good in math, but it seems that ratio is very important, especially when you're talking about golden cut, for instance. 1.61803339 and 0.61803339, and this goes on into infinity. But these are proportions, right? And it seems to be used by the universe as a whole. So you could say that the universe is intelligent as well. It is innate to the human species that we have the ability to form and use ratios, and thus to be rational. This is the key to what makes us human. Our ability to recognize and use letters, thus building words, creating sentences, writing paragraphs, and sharing information beyond our lifetime. Thus, one might build an entire city of bricks. There is an entire reality built from letters, words, and language, and we're all aware that all too often in history, words have been used to create invisible prisons and to enslave minds. See? That's what I said, right? Language is a prison. I'm going to skip this. I don't like to talk about Holocaust survivors. So, in fact, as we'll learn throughout this evening, there is really only one question we need to be asking. And it is by using this single word that we can unlock our own minds and truly begin to explore reality through a methodology of critical thinking and creative problem solving. You know, why is this in here, right? The sentence starts, which I am not going to finish, but it starts here: Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl is famous, not for his being a survivor, but for, and then blah blah blah. Why do you do that? Why put in this idea of Holocaust survivors when you know that it is so politically tainted? This is supposed to be about the Trivium, not about some historical blah blah. That word, by the way, is, let's try this again. In fact, as we'll learn throughout this evening, there is really only one question we need to be asking. And it is by using this single word, and that's going to be what, I guess, that we can unlock our minds and truly begin to explore reality through a methodology of critical thinking and creative problem solving. It's 56, people. We're almost at the end. And I haven't done 1/5 of this, so we'll continue this next week. That word, by the way, is what. And it helps if you put this little squiggly line with a dot below it, thus making it into a question. What is the identity of what? What is the process and purpose of thinking? Yeah. Thinking is the process of identification. Yeah, that would be correct. Yeah. You see, animals don't think as we do. We are the only ones that have an ability to observe reality. To employ metaphor, if you equate the process of learning to the process of eating, thinking is the part where you carefully identify what is and what is not food, so as to not poison yourself. And as eating without thinking could lead you to consume something which is not food. Thinking is a tool of survival and necessary to human beings, who are volitional beings, meaning that there is a space to be filled in, and in that space we make our choices. What is the process and purpose of thinking? Thinking is the process of identification. It starts when we question our observations and initiate a process by which we learn to answer our own questions. Welcome everybody in the chat, by the way. 3006, Cracker, Dan, Hecty, Home Gym, Justy, Lady Pitbull, Razor Vector, Mike, Vincent, a listener, not from Con, and an Anon. Welcome everybody. What is identity? It's the result of the process of eliminating resulting in non-contradictory label. It's the process of elimination. So that sounds like it's not this, it's not that. You know, that's not what I think identity is anyway. If something is identified, you know what it is, right? You don't care about what it is not. So I don't know what he means here. What is identity? It's the result of the process of elimination, resulting in the non-contradictory label. Okay, so the non-contradictory label would be the positive one, right? Because the negative one, through the process of elimination, is kind of useless. It doesn't help identify. It's identified when you have a non-contradictory label.
An inside job.
So thanks a lot for listening, everybody. Take care. I'll see you guys next week.